Again, on this matter that is gained a lot of discussion about the President's directive to the Auditor General, Daniel Domelovo, to take his accumulated leave. So, on this note, let me start with Professor Kwekuasari. You have been eager to even start that discussion before we get here. What's wrong with what the President did? What's not wrong with it?
Samson, thank you. It's a fascinating topic, and every time you look around, there's something breaking. I wish we would have more time to discuss it. And I'm going to try and break it down so that people can actually appreciate all the issues. There are two directives here. Directive number one is that the Auditor General should take his accumulated 123 days leave with effect from July 1, 2020. That is pursuant to the 29 June letter, which has now been increased to 167 days pursuant to the July 3rd letter. And then the second directive is for him to hand over all matters relating to the office of the Auditor General to a Deputy Auditor General. And now the source of power for this action are identified as Section 21 of the Labour Act, Section 31 of the Labour Act, and by the most recent letter by Article 297. There's also a precedent by President Mills that is cited for that. So in terms of analysis, one can do four things. One can analyze it from a constitutional plane, or one can go and do statutory analysis, or one can analyze the precedent, or one can discuss the prudential issues arising out of the directives. So four broad areas. I'll start with the Constitution. It is a little interesting to start there because sometimes, depending on the answer that the Constitution will provide, all the subsequent analysis become moot. But it's still a good place to start from. Now, in terms of the Constitution, Samson, it's very important for people to pay attention to Article 187, 188, and 189. Unless you understand those three articles, none of this discussion will make a whole lot of sense. Article 187 creates an office, and that office is occupied by the Auditor General. And the Auditor General is given some specific functions to audit the public accounts, to disallow, to surcharge. And in the discharge of his functions, he is not subject to any directions or control. That's extremely important. So what we have is a constitutional officer. So he's a constitutional officer. Second, all his reports go to the legislature. So in that regard, he's a legislative officer. Okay, so you have to understand that. Then the instrumentality by which the Auditor General is to perform his function is provided in Article 188. Article 188 creates the audit service. So the office of the Auditor General is very different from the audit service. That's very important. The audit service is just the instrumentality through which the Auditor General performs his functions, but the Auditor General has his own office. And then Article 189 creates an audit service board. Samson, this audit service board is the board of the audit service. It's not the board of the Auditor General's office. So this Audit Service Board cannot direct or control the Auditor General, because by definition, the Auditor General's office and the Auditor General is independent, individually and institutionally. If you don't get that, you are going to miss the whole boat. Now, what then comes next is to understand the values underpinning this architecture. First, we want an Auditor General who is generally beyond the reach of partisan politics, because the Auditor General, after all, audits the executive, and any type of control that the executive can exercise over the Auditor General will render his work meaningless. So there's the constitutional guarantee of independence, there's functional and operational independence, there's freedom of reporting, there's financial autonomy, and there's managerial and administrative autonomy. The other important thing to note, Samson, is that because we have a constitutional office, and because its functions are defined by the Constitution, his duties are prescribed, and the duties cannot be delegated to anyone or any entity. So, for instance, you cannot just get there and say, well, the Auditor General is there, but I've appointed an acting Auditor General to perform the functions of a constitutional officer. It will be almost like somebody appointing somebody to act as the Chief Justice, acting Chief Justice, where we have a substantive Chief Justice. It will make no constitutional sense, because the duties are prescribed by the Constitution itself, and those duties cannot be delegated to anyone by law. Third, I've mentioned that the Auditor General is not subject to anybody's control, including the board. He's not subject to the control of the board of the Audit Service, because the Audit Service is different from the Auditor General's office. And so even I've seen some litigations where the Auditor General wanted his own representation and it was denied. And I'm like, what are they doing? He cannot be forced to use the lawyer representing the Audit Service or the Audit Service Board, because they are independent and different institutions or entities. What are the implications of going through all that, Samson? Number one, can the president direct the Auditor General? No. Number two, can the president exercise any control, including disciplinary control, on the Auditor General? No.
Why? Article 2.
The Auditor General.
Article 2.
Samson, no.
Article 297.
The composition of the board alone.
No,
the
wait.
composition of the board alone should tell you that that's not possible, because the board is a 7-member board. 5 of them are appointed by the president, and so you can't have a board that is dominated by the presidential appointees to have control over an Auditor General who is supposed to be auditing the president and his appointees.
Article 297 of the Constitution. Article 297 of the Constitution says the power of the president to appoint. Therein is implied the power of the president to disappoint and to exercise disciplinary control.
Yeah, they mentioned that in the letter of July 10th. And I was shocked, because it's a complete misunderstanding of an independent constitutional office. When you look at Article 297, not only does it talk about disciplinary control, but it also talks about removal. The power to appoint is the power to exercise disciplinary control and the power to remove. By this logic, they are saying that the Auditor General can be removed by the appointer. That is, I'm shocked. as an independent officer, if he misbehaves, he is removed through Article 146. The president has no power to remove the Auditor General. The president has no power to exercise any control, disciplinary, whatever, financial, administrative, managerial, none. And something I was just going to say to you that Kenya recently had an interesting case, Transparency International Kenya versus the Attorney General. It's a 2016 case, and they talk about the advice given by the Audit Service Board or Audit Advisory Board, their equivalent of our Audit Service Board. And they were very clear. The judges there, they said institutionally and individually, the Auditor General is independent of everyone, including the president, because the president has the executive, and it's the Auditor General that is auditing them.
Okay.
By the way, this forced leave, they force you to go to leave, is something that is becoming more fashionable in Africa. It's been used in Malawi. It's been used in Kenya. In Malawi and Kenya, they try to remove Supreme Court justices through that forced retirement, forced leave thing. The professionals in Kenya and Malawi, they united and pushed back because they understood the threat that poses to the whole constitutional arrangement. If the man who we have charged with auditing our financial systems can be removed, and I use removed here in quotes, because you cannot ask someone who the Constitution has given a task to proceed on leave for 167 days. That is 8 months. Who will be doing his constitutional duties during those 8 months? So it is completely unfounded.
Okay.
Now that's the
right.
Go ahead.
I need you to hold on there, but perhaps just answer this question quickly before I bring my other guest. We have been referred to the Labor Act, particularly Section 30 of the Labor Act, and that is cast in unambiguous terms. It says you cannot agree to relinquish your leave. So if you did any such agreement,
the Labor Act,
it is void.
The Labor Act does not define the term of office of the Auditor General. The Labor Act provides some minimum criteria that employers must comply with. For instance, everyone has a right to a minimum of 15 days of vacation leave, and it is vacation leave. A lot of people have confused that with the leave that we accountants want people to take because of control purposes. This has nothing to do with that. This is just vacation leave. Go home, go and rest, and your employer will pay you. And then second, there is this notion of you cannot forgo or relinquish your leave by agreement. This is just something to stop employers who try to pretty much get their employees to sign contracts that limit their ability to enjoy their leaves. Let me make a couple of points.
Just a minute.
First, if you say leave accumulates, then what? When leave accumulates in regimes that have accumulated leave, and one has to look at the letter appointing him before one can know whether his leave accumulates or not. Some leaves accumulate, some do not. But for leaves that accumulate, what are the implications? The first implication is that sometimes they pay you cash. Sometimes you are not allowed to be paid cash. For instance, our Labor Act do not allow you to get cash. Two, the accumulated leave can translate into sick leave. So if you are not using that, it becomes sick leave. Three, just because you have accumulated leave does not mean your employer can force you to take all the leave, all the days that you have accumulated. When a party or an employee takes leave, it's a call for the employee, not a call for the employer. So the employee will go to the employer. I want to take 1 week leave, this and this and that. And then sometimes the employer will say, oh no, this is a busy time, so you can't.
All right, okay.
So supposing he has accumulated 167 days, nobody can tell him take all of that immediately.
Okay. You will be told by others that elsewhere there will be labor inspectors who will come to the institution and force the employer to ensure that people are taking their leaves and not, as it were, forfeiting them. Now let me hear from Fifi also.
Quickly,
let me hear from
somebody can say.
No, just hold on.
One last point.
No.
All these leave discussions, we have to understand we are talking about a constitutional officer. Okay. And so there's almost always exception for constitutional officers. Okay. Because by nature, their duties cannot be delegated to anyone.
Thank you. Now, Fifi Kwete, what's your take on what is going on with the Auditor General? And if you read the exchange of letters, it seems to be turning into something else. He seems to accuse the president of bad faith and for certain reasons that he is conducting audits that embarrasses the government and that there is evidence to that effect. And so this is clearly a way to get him out of the way. And there's a reply from the presidency that also suggests that that is not that. You deserve some rest. You should go rest. Why? Without you, can the office function? There's a deputy. Why do you want to be there to do everything by yourself? And also even that he's got the guts to impugn wrongdoing on the president.
Yeah, Samson, thank you. Samson, I would have loved to maybe hear the take of the two gentlemen in the studio. I mean, who obviously are much closer to the president, and therefore maybe let's hear what the real reason the president had to do what he did. Then maybe I would have commented, but since you asked my opinion first, no problem, I will go ahead. Samson, to be honest, this is another low point as far as our governance architecture is concerned. And then Akufo-Addo just keeps taking it down. When one bottom is reached, then he takes it to another lower bottom, and this is actually another bottom. I mean, you know, earlier when we spoke about the whole issue about holding institutions being strong to be able to do what they got to do, and Kweku Baku rightly mentioned that some, should I call it, some courage need to be developed by the various officers to be able to do what is right. This actually is an example of that. And what is happening from the presidency shows you why there is such a difficulty in terms of people being able to stand and do what they've got to do. Something I can bet you every single money I have that if Domelovo had not taken an issue against a senior minister an issue that threatens to expose a senior member of this government. And if Domelovo had done that same thing against what you call members of the NDC, he actually would have been a hero in the eyes of President Akufo-Addo today. And even if he accumulated 1,000 days, President Akufo-Addo will never ask him to take any accumulated leave. The problem of Mr. Domelovo is that he is not playing the ball the way, for example, Jean Mensah of the Electoral Commission is playing ball with the ruling party and President Akufo-Addo. It's as simple as that. There is nothing about being independent. It's about playing ball with the ruling party. I have appointed you and you need to play ball. And in the case of Domelovo, because the president is not the one that appointed him, he feels that's why he's not ready to play ball with him. So what do? Let's show him power. Unfortunately, in their haste to show power, they clearly showed what you call, an unbelievable level of of ineptitude and incompetence.
But Fifi,
not even understanding even the very constitution that the president has sworn to be able to
Fifi,
uphold.
you are seeking.
How do you?
Fifi, you are seeking to impugn the integrity of someone without evidential basis. That the president is doing something which is untoward, and that it is because Domelevo is not willing to play ball, so to speak, like Jean Mensa, like you said. But you cannot give any evidence to show that Jean is playing any ball with the president.
So let me explain to you why it's so obvious. Why? If you read through the letter of Mr. Domelevo, he's actually explained in detail that there are so many people who are working under the president, who are in public service, some of them who are government officials, who also have so many days of leave. Why has the president not deemed it fit to write to any of those people? Why Domelevo?
This is what I mean. This is what I mean. This is what I mean. Fifi, just a minute. This is what I mean, and we can clear it nicely and proceed. You are making an accusation against the Electoral Commission chairperson, who is not the subject of this discussion. I think it is fair that she is not your focus on this discussion.
Yeah, but then I'm just talking about what you call the strength of institutions in our country. And I want to submit that, in my view, the Electoral Commissioner is not independent. It is not simply by accident that every decision of the Electoral Commissioner is in total alignment with the ruling entity. It's not an accident. It's not an accident, for example, the Electoral Commissioner at IPAC, with eminent what you call personalities in this country, with CSOs, said, and her own words said, that the current voter ID will be used, and then the data would also be just moved and used. And suddenly, that movement, that position of the Electoral Commissioner has just changed, and now coinciding with the very position of the MPP, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to simply see that this is not an independent.
Well, unfortunately, we have to deal with facts and not conjecture. Can you keep to them level?
I'm not making a conjecture. Keep to them level. It's a deduction I'm making.
Okay, so you admit you are making deductions. You are not speaking to facts. So can we go on with Domelevo?
Exactly. So as far as Domelevo is concerned, I'm saying the real problem of Mr. Domelevo is that he actually doesn't understand the regime that we have. The regime we have is a regime that believes that if you're not going to play the ball according to the way we want it, we'll show you where power lies. It's as simple as that.
Okay, what are the facts? Has Domelevo accumulated, as we know now, 167 days of leave? Fact or not?
Yeah, of course, it shows that he did, because I don't think he disputed it. But it is not the business of the president to make a determination as to whether people take leave or not. That is not his business.
In the case of the Auditor General, in the case of the Auditor General, who should exercise discipline or control over him?
No, but I would have even thought that the first thing that even the whole government architecture would have taken note of is to understand, for example, the labor laws. And I think Domelevo's letter clearly shows, and I don't think he's only the only one who has said so, other labor experts have corroborated the same position, that it is not the business of the government, or for that matter, the president, to be making that determination. He has got onerous responsibilities. He's got huge business that he ought to do. At the moment we are talking about Ghana becoming an epicenter for COVID. Ghana having difficulties with even providing PPEs for health workers. Critical health workers are dying because of this. And then you are here talking about a letter to Domelevo to go on leave, so that it coincides with the remaining months left. And then by the time he's come back, his term is over. And then you then have the opportunity to appoint the person you want, so that person will be able to do your job for you, to be able to play ball according to you. It is so obvious. Unfortunately for him, in his haste, he has totally gone totally wrong. And he has exposed his motivation. It's shown to everybody that the whole talk about fighting corruption is just a hollow talk. There's no substance to it, because clearly this is one individual who is showing that yes, anybody, regardless of where you belong, whether it's NDC, MPP, or whatever, if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Okay.
And obviously,
hold on there. So, Nana, you may have heard the concerns from civil society so far. Will the president be able to say Martin Amidu has accumulated leave, so he should go on leave? Will the president be able to say the Chief Justice or a Justice of the Superior Court or whatever has accumulated leave, so they should go on leave? Not the question of whether or not there is accumulated leave or there is not accumulated leave. Will the president be allowed, is he allowed to say Electoral Commission commissioners or the Shraj commissioner or NCC boss commissioner have accumulated leave, so he is giving them the direction to go on the leave?
Well, Samson, if the matter is escalated to the presidency, then there's a problem. We are talking about the independence of a constitutional body, which is, in this case, is the Auditor General.
Right.
It is very clear. Nobody can direct the Auditor General to go and investigate Kweku Bako or to go and investigate Joy FM. It is his independence. He can choose to do auditing that inures to the benefit of the public purse. Nobody can direct him, don't go and audit this person, but go and audit that person. Nobody can do that. But what we are talking about is these conditions of service. That's the issue. And when you are appointed as Auditor General or any other body, there are conditions of service. Are you going to say that because I'm the Chief Justice of Ghana, or I am the Auditor General of Ghana, and I am independent, so I cannot go by my conditions of service? Can anybody say that?
The question is, who enforces that? Is it the president?
Exactly. So who enforces? Ordinarily, there's an issue. The board, in my view, should be the body that ensures that the conditions of service apply. But when you have a situation where there's conflict between the board and the Auditor General, and the Auditor General is stretching his independence to include his own determination of his conditions of service, and the board then refers the matter to the appointing authority, then you have this issue. And I listened to Fifi Kwete and I was laughing. There he is, sitting on a horse, saying that it means that the Auditor General is not playing ball. You see, when Fifi Kwete and people like him speak like this, then you partisan the debate, and then we are forced to bring in what happened when Fifi Kwete was a member of government. Because when Fifi Kwete was a member of government, his government did the same. And there he is sitting here 10 years later, sitting on a horse, pointing fingers at somebody. When you did the same to another Auditor General, in fact, not to another constitutional body, but the same constitutional body, the Auditor General. So for me, the issue is, how does the matter escalate to a crisis so that it has to be referred to the presidency? For me, that is the problem. And going forward, we need to deal with that matter. If the relationship between the Auditor General and the Audit Service Board was a regular relationship, this issue would not have arisen. Because, and there seems to be some confusion about independence in your work and independence as far as your conditions of service apply. And that confusion is what has brought this matter about. And who enforces your conditions of service?
Right. So that's my question. Can you imagine? Hold on. The Auditor General, the Auditor General, not the Audit Service, enjoys the terms and conditions of service just as the Shraj boss, just as the EC boss, just as the justices of the Superior Court. Court of Appeal, can you imagine the president directing any of these other classes of independent institution officers in the manner he has done to the Auditor General.
You recognize that the president did not on his own get up and order the Auditor General to take his leave.
So he can do that. He can do that to a judge.
Well,
he can do that to the EC
What
boss.
I'm saying is, it's a hypothetical situation. This is a real situation. I am sure if the Judicial Council, is it the Judicial Council that
yes.
If the Judicial Council reports some conduct of the Chief Justice or any justice
to the
president, then they will be confronted with that. And I'm sure the president will act in the best interest of the law.
You will advise the president. You will advise the president to do that
by the law.
Okay.
If the law permits the president, and in this case, I'm sure the president believes that he's acting according to the law. And if anybody doesn't believe so, of course, there's the precedent. But I don't want to partisan make it NPP and this life if equity is trying to do. If anybody believes that the president's interpretation is wrong, we can deal with it through the appropriate forum. But as far as the president is concerned, a matter that is escalated to him, he looks at the law and takes action that he believes is in accordance with the law.
Is the president a court or what?
No, the president. That's why his decisions and actions can be subjected to court review. But when you look at the labor law, for example, it applies to everybody. The people who the law doesn't apply to are specified in this law. It's a very, very simple law. When you look at Section 1 of the labor law.
Right at the preamble.
Right there, it says that
Armed Forces, Security Services,
this act applies to all workers and employers, except the armed forces, the police service, the prison council. So those people who are exempted from this law are provided. The Auditor General is not provided as part of the
So the president is the enforcer of the Labor Act. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the president is the chief executive of the country. And so if there's a dispute and the laws allow him to, and in this case, that's why the importance of the precedent came in. In this case, there's a precedent. And nobody raised an issue. So if the Audit Service Board escalates this matter to the presidency, and the presidency says, the law allows me, and there's also a precedent.
The question your critics raise is, why do you refer to precedent when you were voted for to do things differently? So if something was deemed to be wrong, why do you use that as a justification for your conduct when that is the reason somebody may have left office?
You will clearly agree that the NDC, when the NPP under President Mills took that decision, the NDC didn't deem it to be wrong. Yes. Okay. But you see, let me make one small point. The Auditor General, this business about motives, he's saying that he believes the president is asking him to take his leave because there's a certain motivation and that his work is embarrassing the government. This is what he himself states in his letter to the president. How is the Auditor General's work embarrassing the president or the government? You made some finding against one minister of state, Safo Mafu. He disagrees. Not the government of Ghana, not the presidency. Safo Mafu disagrees. And he takes you to court to seek redress. How is the government, how do you apply this to say the government is embarrassed? Indeed, when the government was asked to take some action on some payment to former members of parliament, the government referred the matter to you, the Auditor General, that you think is right that we proceed on this payment. And you gave your advice to the government, and the government is abiding by your advice. And you say that this government is embarrassed by your work? Without any shred of proof?
Kuku, having listened to everybody else and starting with Professor Kuku Asare's point of view, do you take the view that the Auditor General should be treated as an employee of the president?
What a question. Quite simple but difficult to answer. He's an appointee of the president relative to the appropriate constitutional provision. That's the way I would put it. But an employee of the president perhaps sounds a bit oversimplified and comes with a certain distortion that I'm unable to interrogate directly. He's an appointee of the president based on the appropriate provisions of the Constitution. And when he gets in there, he has a security of tenure. And he's got independence in terms of the functions that he performs. Also, political independence in terms, that's the one that not subject to control or direction.
Okay.
Then the financial independence, you see, his emoluments and those things, captured in Article 71, also gives him some independence there. Look,
so on that score, what do you make of the argument by Professor Kokwasari that this letter just issued by the presidency is inconsistent with the law when you say the president appointing him by Article is it 267?
Yeah, that's right.
Has the power to discipline him, when the president does not have the power to discipline people of the same conditions of service?
Well, I'm sure you are interpreting this proceed on leave, accumulated leave,
right,
as disciplinary measure. I'm not too sure
that's what the presidency says.
Okay, I haven't read that.
No, that's what they have said.
Disciplinary measure?
No, they say, let me read to you.
Yes.
That's what they say. So the presidency says in one of the paragraphs of the letters, the letter they have just issued in response to the Auditor General. And which paragraph is that? I'll read that to you right now. So they say, as you are well aware, that's in page 1, the very last paragraph. As you are well aware, the power to appoint the Auditor General is vested in the President, and the appointment is done in accordance with Article 70 of the Constitution. Per Article 297A of the Constitution, that power to appoint includes the power to, quote, exercise disciplinary control over persons holding or acting in any such office, unquote. Thus, to the extent that you fail to comply with a basic term of your appointment, such as taking annual leave, the president has the power to exercise disciplinary control over you to ensure that you comply with the terms of your appointment.
Interesting. I wouldn't put it that way, but that's a lawyer too. The president's secretary is a lawyer. I'm sure he referred to.
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
Yes,
Yes, a lawyer.
He might have referred to some. I haven't read the text. You are just reading it to me. But you see, let me be honest with you. I think you are aware there's a case at the Supreme Court on the board and the Auditor General's, the issue of independence, the functions of the Auditor General relative to the board. That case was sent there by a gentleman called Wilberforce. And it is important, all what is happening now, it's obvious that what will happen at the Supreme Court may have a bearing on what is happening. So I think that we should be waiting for that particular process. It's a constitutional issue that has been raised.
I'll plead with you to hold on there. We'll take a last break. We'll be right back.